to the Midnight Highway Radio with your host, Sean Lonkert. So sit back, take a ride on the Midnight Highway. Where it may take you is not known. Keep an open mind, a mind for the possibility. What if? Now here's your host, Sean Lonkert.
Well, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you may be. I am Sean Lonkert, and you are listening to the Midnight Highway Radio. Tonight, David Serita. David Serita's first aspiration in life was to become an astronaut. In 1968, David and a friend witnessed a UFO along with hundreds of other witnesses. After this experience, David grew up as a UFO enthusiast, never living in doubt of the phenomena that has swept the world since the Roswell, New Mexico incident in 1947. His interest in space, religion, philosophy, astronomy, and science led him on his career in related fields. He has worked deeply in high technology on environmental and humanitarian issues and as a professional photographer for over 20 years. He has studied world religion, science, physics, and paranormal psychology for over 25 years. David has also produced movies such as From Here to Andromeda, The Voice, Singularity, and more. He has also published many books and has appeared on Fox News and has spoken at many seminars on various topics. Most importantly, though, guys, David Sereda is authentic. Just YouTube his name or Google it, and you will be entertained for hours. When we come back, the subject is going to be faster than light communication. Stay with us, guys. You don't want to miss this show.
Now we're back with your host, Sean Lonkert, and we're talking with David Serita.
All right, so from the presentation you sent me, I understand we're going to be talking about pyramids and communication faster than light. Is that correct?
Yeah, the idea, my new theory on the pyramids, which I've been developing for a few years now, is that they were electronic devices and they were crystal oscillators that were producing harmonic sets of frequencies in the ratios of distant star systems, but the geometries of the pyramid would open up a faster than light energy field, allowing the ancient Egyptians to talk to their distant gods in distant star systems, such as Pleiades and Orion's belt, hundreds to even thousands of light years away.
That's I'll tell you what, just hearing something like that, I mean, talking to aliens with way back in the day we're talking. I mean, we're not talking stuff that we're using today. You're talking pyramids and the way they're designed. people can actually communicate to other races out there.
Yeah, that's what, and I've been for the last year and a half now picking up old history books on solid state physics, which is kind of the history of how all the microelectronic components were born, such as the transistor that led to long-distance telephone calls, in the beginning, in the early days, and long-distance radio, and eventually, cell phones and laptop computers and iPads and all these things. I mean, the birth of the transistor is one of the most important discoveries, as well as the crystal oscillator, in the birth of modern electronics and telecommunications. And to understand how a transistor is made and how it works, and how the first one works, and then to go to the pyramids and see them as giant crystal oscillator transistors is very easy once you really understand what's going on. Most people don't know in their laptop computer and their cell phone there are little chips that have thousands to even billions of transistors in them. In 1947, William Shockley, John Bardeen, and Will Bratt actually completed the discovery of the first successful transistor. And the idea was that in the early days of radio, first Nikola Tesla discovered radio at the Chicago World's Fair in 1893. He demonstrated it. His lab assistant, Cordelli Marconi, steals the patent on radio out of the drawer, and he goes and builds a radio system and broadcasts across the Atlantic. And, those early radio technologies developed by Tesla eventually got improved by Sir Oliver Lodge and Stone, developing the ability to tune into different radio frequencies and different stations, broadcast on different frequencies, and they were using the old tube amplifiers. And the tube amplifiers got hot, and they broke down, and you still couldn't transmit very far, very clearly. And so Will Shockley discovered that crystals, ordinary crystal, had these free electrons floating on the surface of the crystals, and he went, you could use crystal as an amplifier to amplify the signal, the radio signal, so you could transmit and receive radio messages from much clearer and over great distances, and you wouldn't need these tube amplifiers. Well, when he saw the free electrons, and of course electrons flow through wires like drops of water flow down a river and hit a paddle and turn a paddle.
All right.
Electrons flow through wires and hit your blender, and they cause it to spin. So they're the carriers of the electric force. Very important little guys. And the fact that crystals had lots of free electrons floating around meant that they were ultimately kind of a miniature free power source, or battery, if you will. And a battery couldn't do what a crystal can do. And so the first thing William Shockley did is he did all the math and all this physics, and he thought if he ran a wire a hair's breadth above the surface of the crystal, he could pick up the passenger electrons that would jump on the train, go for a ride, and he'd have amplification, more electrons, and therefore he could amplify radio signals. And it didn't work, and he went crazy, and finally he got the idea that the wire had to touch the crystal, and he sent in a pyramid angle gold, really thin wire into a slice of crystal, semiconductor crystal, which is what crystal is, germanium crystal, and it bounced out at a pyramidal angle, and lo and behold, he got amplification. It worked. I mean, this is making a long story short.
Right.
And I was really interested in the pyramidal angle and the deflection, and how the first transistor was made of layers. It needed a conductive metal layer and a layer of crystal and another conductive layer. And I thought, well, the pyramids are made of, 3 layers of materials. You have rose or pink granite core in the Grand Gallery in the King's and Queen's Chamber. Then it's surrounded by these dolomite limestone blocks, which are full of magnesium, and magnesium is a conductor sitting on top of another layer of crystal. And then you have another layer of white insulative limestone blocks on the outside. And there's an excellent movie on YouTube called The Pyramid Code. And I didn't get my idea of the crystal oscillator theory from them, but they have the idea that the pyramids were electric, and it's a very, very good thesis. But the reason you set up differentials or different types of material is to create difference in energy charge so that electrons will flow from one place to another. Hence, voltage means difference. You need difference for electrons to flow. For example, a Duracell battery, copper top Duracell battery, you have a zinc probe and a copper probe going into the core of a lead acid battery.
Right.
And you have to have two different metals for your anode cathode, positive negative charge poles, because you get electrons to flow. So the pyramid had all of these differential layers of material, and that couldn't be a coincidence. And then when you see the Dendera light bulb, which is very famous, people think this thing is a light bulb. If you Google Dendera light bulb, you'll see this giant wand being held by these super tall gods, and these little humans sitting underneath it with their arms up as if they're receiving some vibration from the thing. And I thought, have you ever stood next to a 500-watt light bulb and it blinds you? This thing is way bigger than that. So there's no way this thing is a light bulb. It's obviously some type of a transmitter. You can see a crystal on the inside, and these very tall, I estimate to be 7-8 foot gods, the Nephilim or the giants, are holding it and transmitting something into the humans, and who are receiving this kind of activation. And we know that DNA got modified many times by Zechariah Sitchin's work so that the humans could not access the higher functions of their brain or their higher chakras very easily. And so most of us would not have any real spiritual or supernatural abilities anymore like our forefathers and mothers did, the demigods and goddesses. So in the Dendera light photo, which you can see on Wikipedia, they're obviously transmitting some type of energy to the DNA, because DNA responds to magnetic fields to activate the human DNA. Possibly this group of humans are some sort of initiates in the Great Pyramid. So seeing that the pyramid is a crystal oscillator, what actually happens is you're looking at, how do we make crystal oscillators? How do they work? Very, very simple little guys. They're just a slice of quartz crystal with two metal plates on either side. These are some of the earliest oscillators. And you run a very weak electric current into one, and it sends oscillations through the crystal, and the crystal sets up vibration. What happens is, as soon as you electrically charge any type of crystal or gem, the electrons jump out of their orbits in the atoms, and they start spinning in loops and oscillating in the crystal, hence crystal oscillator. That little oscillator not only keeps amazing time in quartz watches, because the oscillations are almost 40,000 oscillations per second, but it's also used in tuning devices and even amplifiers. All sorts of things crystal oscillators are used for. And it's kind of the predecessor to the transistor. The transistor basically is using the free electrons floating on the surface of the crystal to amplify very, very delicate and weak signals on the milliwatt scale, which is thousands of a watt scale. Very, very weak stuff. But when William Shockley did it, and they actually got eventually evolved in 1947, the first transistor, suddenly you could hear long-distance radio transmissions very clearly. They weren't all staticky and everything was breaking up. And the transistor was born, and a little company called Fairchild Transistors eventually got destroyed by Intel, and Intel actually stole all of Will Shockley's and Bardeen's discoveries, and they took the idea of the transistors and started making transistors, very, 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 very useful devices, and using them everywhere. In 1972, a single Intel computer chip started with about 2,300 crystal transistors in it, and today there's over 2.3 billion transistors on an Intel chip. 2.3 billion, you can't even see those little guys. They're so small. Actual micro electronics. So the idea that the Great Pyramids were these giant crystal oscillators really interested me because we got so obsessed with things being really, really small.
Right, yeah, you can see that, the trend.
Yeah, the trend was, more transistors to do more amplifications of different signals, one signal for the color red or 1,000 different tones of red, so you got to have 1,000 different little transistors for your laptop computer to have all those beautiful colors. And each transistor is doing so many different functions. So I became obsessed with crystals, and I started doing my own work with crystals, and I ended up building some quantum technology to store vibrational energy in crystals. And I came up with a series of crystal pins that I'm storing, vibrations from the NASA sound of the sun, harmonic codes in nature, the infinities, now even the pyramid frequencies, which we'll go into. I'm storing in these necklaces. And when people touch them, I can measure their millivolts and even their microamps in their nervous system. And I can see an increase when they come in contact with the pendant. And at first I thought, oh my God, this is like the transistor, because the first transistors were amplifying energy on the milliwatt scale. And the human nervous system on the surface of the skin, through the voltage that comes to the surface of the skin, you can put your thumb and your index fingers on your left and right hand on the black and the red probes on a voltmeter, and you can see the numbers jumping around all over the place, and you can see the high and the low. And then when they come in contact with my little transistor-like pendants, they go way up. And I thought, well, what if it's just happening in the pendant and not the body? So we did aura camera photography, which confirmed there was a huge change in the human aura just from contacting these amazing little pendants, which we sell.
Now, do these reactions, is there different reactions with each individual?
Yeah, every person has a different baseline electricity. Through the galvanic skin response, you're getting different numbers jumping around the voltmeter. And some people are critically low, especially people with depression, nervous system disorders, or even people who are very low oxygen absorption in their cells. They always have really low voltage. But they touch one of my pendants, the really low voltage people, and they let it go. They're not even touching it anymore, and we retest them, and they're higher. Well, I took an old Fairchild in transistor, which was before Intel in the Silicon Valley, and I pinched it on my fingers with a voltmeter, and it raised my millivolts, not as much as my pendants, but quite a bit above my baseline. I thought, oh my God, I've discovered a bio-transistor effect to raise the human body energy system using a lot more crystal than they use in a Fairchild transistor. But, you can see pictures of this in my ebook at lightstreamtechnologies.com, what I'm talking about. So anyway, a very, very interesting effect. We tested over 1,000 people at different trade shows, and we've seen consistently people with nervous system disorders exhibiting really low voltage levels and even clinical depression. And we're having a lot of interesting, feedback from the people who wear them. Tremendous stuff going on. So we look at what we're talking about here is the power of stone and crystal as semiconductor. Einstein, Dirac, Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, and so many physicists that you can't even know their names because they're not famous. Everybody was working on crystals, crystallography, crystal diffraction, trying to discover the hidden properties of all the different types of crystals and even metallic crystalline structures on the periodic table of elements. That's what they were all doing before World War I and II. They were obsessed with it. In fact, most of the time, they did math to determine how to quantify what was happening in certain exotic materials. They were usually wrong every single time because certain materials, like even bismuth, would baffle their mind so much because there were secret hidden properties in materials, which is what solid-state physics is all about. And the very fact that somebody was studying crystals, and all of the best minds in the world were studying it, is so astounding to think of, because we know Einstein for the general theory of relativity and the photoelectric effect, and working on starting the Manhattan Project and building atomic bombs. We don't know him for crystals.
Right.
And he was not one of the best scientists in that arena at all. Well, anyway, crystals have these mini black holes that are called semiconductor holes. And the research that was done on them in the late 1800s, early 1900s was so deep that nobody today that I can see knew as much as someone like Paul Dirac did about them about the mysterious semiconductor holes on the surface of crystals. And I really think we really missed the gate on the possibility of what could happen if you build a super large scale transistor or crystal oscillator. And that's what I believe the pyramids were.
Now, do you believe a lot of people, there's a lot of different people out there that have different opinions on this. What is your most honest and humble opinion? Did man build the pyramids, or was
No
it?
way. No way. When you do the math that Peter Lemaitre did in his book, The Great Pyramid, Decoded in the 1970s, and the math that I've done, and just in the last year, on decoding the pyramid's frequencies. See, once you know that the pyramid is oscillating electrons in orbit inside of its, geometries, you know how to calculate its frequencies, which I did. And once you look at the numbers, and you look at some of the hidden numbers in the geometrical structure of the pyramid, and you start to see the same numbers in the frequencies, you go, oh my God. I mean, how could they know that number? There's a great new film by Patrice Pouillard on the Great Pyramid. It's all over the internet. It's too bad it's not on DVD yet. I saw his film, and there's this mysterious mathematician. They don't show his face or his name, and he shows you where the speed of light is coded in the dimensions of the base of the Great Pyramid. You just draw a circle inside of the base of the Great Pyramid, and you draw another circle from all the sharp, the corners, and you get two circles, different circumferences. And in metric, centimeters and meters, you subtract the small circle from the big circle, and you're left with 299,000, which is the speed of light in metric, 299,000 kilometers per second. And you go, how the heck did the builder, if it was a primitive man, because I'm answering your question now,
Right.
even know the speed of light back then, which was an impossible number to know, that the
Yeah.
Greeks didn't know it, nobody knew the speed of light in those days. How could you know this number? And what is the purpose of knowing the speed of light in a geometry made of stone? And I thought, well, it's not to send information at the speed of light to a distant star system. The Great Pyramid at Giza and the three pyramid set is in the exact same ratio as Orion's belt star system. The three stars that are sitting under, you have Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, 8.7 light years away, and you have Orion's belt, which is over 1,000 light years away, and you have Pleiades, 440 light years away above that. And you go, why would the speed of light matter and distances like that? I go, of course I know why it's there. So I redid the math to find out if the metric speed of light was really there, and it is, and very clearly, and then you use the speed of light to divide your square perimeter shape dimensions and your circular dimensions into the speed of light to get your frequencies, because that's how you measure the frequency of an electromagnetic vibration, is you need the speed of light as a measuring tool. So that's why it was there. Once I decoded 180 pyramid frequencies, I built my own version of the Dendera transmitter wand, or light bulb, as some people think it is. I don't think it is. And I made a crystal oscillator core electromagnet, which was my own invention, and put rubies in it. And we actually sell these. I transmitted, using less than 100 watts of power, the 180 frequencies of the Great Pyramid through the wand, and I put little ball magnets on dishes, and they all started zipping around on the dish.
And you actually got a YouTube video up demonstrating this.
Yeah, and there's a YouTube video video up, which you can link people to. It's on my Spaceman 99 channel. And what's astounding about this is no single frequency that you transmit using a signal generator can make the magnet move. It can make the magnet vibrate and shake in the presence of the field, but it doesn't oscillate like that. And the first thing I thought is, my God, is this the secret to gravity? How the planets are moving around the sun?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, guys and girls listening to this right now, I'm going to link that, I'm going to put that YouTube video up on the midnighthighway.com because I've never seen anything like it personally. I mean, it was just amazing to look at.
Well, what's amazing, what's causing the magnet to move, I've done a lot of math in experiments, is unique differentials, because the four base sides of the Great Pyramid are slightly different lengths in meters and cubits. Then you get, when you convert those to frequencies, which is, I'm not going to go through all the math on the air, but you end up with four slightly different base numbers for the different sides of the pyramid. And what's amazing about that is when you convert that to your frequencies and transmit them, it's those differences which is difference is voltage. That's the true meaning of voltage. You need to set up difference. Is you realize, my God, that's what's causing the magnets to move. That's what's causing it. But yet, if I produce some artificial differential numbers, the numbers in the Great Pyramid, the frequencies are like, including the decimal and everything after the decimal, is over 20 numbers, long. Each number, and I've got 180 numbers. I tried to produce some artificial differentials, and they didn't move the magnet. So, but then I tried phi, and phi is the Fibonacci numbers, the ratio of 1 to 1.618 numbers, discovered by Leonardo Fibonacci, whose father took him to Egypt where he studied all this ancient math. And sure enough, according to Peter Lemesurier's book, the phi ratio numbers are in the Great Pyramid as well. In fact, two of the base lengths on the square side divided into the height is pi, actually, pi, which is the resolution of the circle. You take the diameter of a circle times pi, and you get the distance around the circle, the circumference. So I did all of the pi frequencies. I did 23 pi frequencies, and that moved the magnet too in a spiral on the plate, but not as vigorously as the pyramid frequencies did. So, and I'm only putting a little bit of power in my transmitter wand, and we started using it just like you see in the light bulb photo on my chakras and my bodies and my wife's, and then we started pulsing our room with this thing, and my God, instantly, my wife was taken out of body. This was only a month and a half ago, and she meets this being, and this is while the pyramid frequencies are transmitting, and he shows her there's three major events about to happen on the Earth.
Okay, this right here, this is where I got to pause. Everybody out there listening that just heard what you said, it actually took your wife out of body and she meets a being.
Right.
Okay, go into this because this is going to be interesting.
Well, it's quite amazing because my wife, I could even get her on to tell the story more precisely.
Yeah, that would be great.
This being, do you want to hear from her?
Sure.
Crystal?
She's probably going to be like, oh no, David, you're putting me on the air.
Oh, no, she likes to do this. She needs to tell us. Hang on.
Okay. No, guys and girls listening, I'm sure this is definitely going to be a very interesting story. Listen with an open mind, please. I know I'm going to, and I'm definitely looking forward to this.
Hello?
Hello, Crystal.
Hi.
Hey, how are you doing?
Okay, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I hear you got a story to tell me.
Sure, yes. I had received some visions in the past about a pole shift, which included a tsunami along the west coast, California in particular. And so I didn't receive a date though, and I was praying to Ashtar and asking, if I receive these visions without a date, what's the point of me knowing about it? And so.
Remember, he showed you the three major events.
Yeah, just leading up to that. So I prayed a couple times to show me clearly an approximate date that the event would start. Big tsunami being one of them before the pole shift. So basically, it led up to what I'm about to tell you, but I'm just going to tell you how the major part started.
Okay.
And it started where I was like just kind of teleported to space, and I was in the universe somewhere, and I didn't see any planets or anything, but just lots of stars in a dark space. And I heard this voice right away, a male voice, very strong. I didn't even remember at the time that I had actually prayed to Ashtar, because I wasn't aware of Ashtar until a couple of years ago, and then he gave me some information about how they have the ability to save thousands of us if the Earth, goes into transition. And
Now, pardon me to interrupt you, but when you're talking about Ashtar, that brings me back to 1977, interrupted broadcast, I believe in England. Does that ring a bell? Okay, you know what I'm talking about, David.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the guy then. This is the being that she's talking to.
right, yeah, this is the one that I'm referring to.
Okay.
So anyway, in the vision, I wasn't aware that, oh yeah, this is Ashtar, but later when I remembered that I had asked him to give me a clear date, it made sense with the energy that I felt during the vision from this man, because he was very professional and very grounded in both his energy and the way he spoke. But it wasn't like a particularly warm voice. It was very straightforward. And the voice first said, "Do you see it?" And then right away, very clearly, there's a timeline in front of me. And there were three markers. One marker, and then another marker shortly after that, and then there is more of a space with the third marker towards the end. And yeah, and just that I can't put it in time. I don't think that time occurs. So then he said it will happen. Well, he said 6 months from now, and then it will happen 6 months from now. It will happen. Sorry. No, I he said it will happen 6 months from now.
It's okay. It's okay.
6 months from now, or never. And he kind of like had a little bit of a humorous like tone just when he said or never.
Right.
Like 6 months from now, or never. When he said whenever, I didn't quite say, it may not be like a little bit or never, like it's not 100%. I was thinking, I can't rely on it because it's not 100%. But the thought, my response was all internal, and it happened so quickly. The aftermath, that thought so really loudly, want without it.
while the one was on transmitting 7, and 6 with the time frame was like July, Crystal?
Well, when I woke up and I did the calculation, was at self like 11. What would it be? July 11. July 11. Oh, and
Really, I mean, it was really believe so happy with her. Oh, you're right.
Okay, no. To clarify this, what year was this when you had this experience? This year, okay. And
July 11th. Late. Time. And that's the weather event after the one in July.
so what this guy or this being is saying, Ashtar, is around July 10th or 11th, there's going to be a tsunami.
well, I'm more when I was I believe was that particular event. I mean, I was also thinking of the pole shift vision because I had a pole shift vision, but that included in the pole shift vision, and it also included a tsunami, earthquakes, everything. So when I said I didn't know, I was thinking of family along the coast in California because and friends. We have family and friends there. You know, most of them don't believe in this stuff, so we need to have more exact dates to be able to get them to visit us at that particular time.
I want to say something, not to interrupt you, Crystal. I'm loving what you're saying, but I was watching a YouTube video of your husband, David, and he was talking at a seminar. I forget exactly what it was, and there was a guy that introduced him, and apparently David and him were talking in the background, and David said something like, "It's going to happen, it's going to happen," and this has something to do with the Haiti earthquake, and then it was like exactly 24 hours later, it happened.
Yeah, it was actually less than a week later. Yeah, there were, and we don't know for certain what that meant because I had a dream the same night a guest who was staying at our house, and we weren't talking about this stuff at all. It was around Christmas time, just before Haiti, the Christmas season, I believe, and we both had a dream of a giant tsunami, but in our dreams it was hitting Southern California. And the tsunami I saw in my dream was over 2,000 feet high. And then,
Wow.
after the dream, Haiti struck, and of course a lot of people died. Over 100,000 people died. And so it's a major, major event, and it was thought that, maybe, because sometimes you dream of a major event in your subconscious because the data is in the universe, but you interpret it as in a familiar environment that's familiar to you. But this, I'm not sure if it was you or another radio show host who was interviewing me. That's probably what you were hearing on YouTube. We found out he had the dream the same night that my friend and I did.
Okay.
And it was like, how could three people have the same dream? That wasn't you, was it?
That's ringing a bell because I do believe having a dream about a tsunami, and my wife can actually vouch for that as well. And something else that was pretty wild, I'm sure you remember back in '04, '05, 3 hurricanes hit Florida, like right off the bat. And I remember calling my mother up and saying, well, Mom, I had a dream. We're going to have another hurricane probably next week. And I swear to you, I go on, I look at the Weather Channel because Charlie had just hit. It was my first hurricane experience. And bam, there's another low pressure system coming off the coast of Africa. And it ended up being Francis. And then right after that came Gene. And it was like I dreamt of each one of those hurricanes. And it was kind of cool because I actually had my mom. I know it's my mom, but I actually had her to back up what I said, and my wife as well.
See, that, I think it was you then. And
Yep.
we figured out we all had the same, and then we met somebody else in our house. We figured out she had a dream, and in her dream it was Southern California as well. This girl lives in Arizona. So I think we're seeing an event that's still to come. There's still something. And when the night that the earthquake off the coast of Japan happened last.
Oh yeah, God forbid.
I was in bed asleep, and I hear this voice of an angel saying, "Look, look." And I had all the computers in the house off and all the lights, and I didn't want to get up and look at the computer, so I went outside looking for like a flying saucer or something because I heard a real voice. And she said, "Look to the north-northwest," which is in the direction of Japan, but I wasn't thinking Japan in the middle of the night. Went back to bed and woke up, and sure enough, it was on the news. And nobody knew how big the wave would be when it would hit the California coast, but
Right.
Even though it killed somebody in Northern California,
There was actually some damage. I mean, there were some dogs that got really messed up. I mean, it wasn't your normal day stuff in California.
and I wondered if that was the tsunami that we all saw, and is it possible our consciousness diminished it? But when I was transmitting my wand that night, and then Crystal had this experience, I thought, no, because some other friends of mine have been getting dreams, and I had another dream of 3 huge red circles on a map off the Pacific. It was actually near Alaska, off the southern Alaskan coast, British Columbia coast, way out there, between Japan and Alaska. I saw 3 huge earthquakes, and this was way after Japan had happened. I thought, I don't know, but when several people have the same dream, it tends to mean something. But I believe we can change these events. If you can, in quantum physics, if you can see something before it happens, you can change it.
Right.
Before it happens.
Now, going back to Crystal here, I know she mentioned something about a pole shift. Now, elaborate a little bit more on that.
That was the big vision.
Yeah, that was.
Okay, now you had 3 of them, right?
Well, no, he showed you 3 events.
Okay.
But this vision Crystal had when we had just moved from Los Angeles to Sedona.
Okay. So you're still in Sedona then, David?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you want to know about that one?
Oh, yeah, please.
Well, I was standing on the edge of a mountain, and there was greenery going down in front of me, and then ocean, and first a coastline and then the ocean, and then another coastline across from that ocean. And I became aware of these objects in the sky coming from both sides of me, from behind me, heading towards the coast. And then I knew that the angle at which they were moving, when they would hit, they would be forming a triangle. So as soon as I became aware of the angle, the ones on the right disappeared, and it became all about the ones on the left. And then I knew it was going to impact one of the coastlines. So there were these little markers on the coastline, and I said in my head which one is going to hit, and the marker from the marker that would have been like Los Angeles area disappeared, and the one furthest across from Los Angeles all the way up to where I was standing. And I didn't know at the time of the vision what was where I was, geologically. But I heard a voice say, "You will be safe in Sedona." So I knew that I must have been in Sedona where I was standing in the vision. But at the same time, I was shown that the impact of these objects would change the Earth's direction to clockwise. So I think the whole setup of the vision of figuring out the exact angle at which the objects were coming was for me to really understand the shift axis to go clockwise. And I wasn't actually aware of which way our Earth spun. I had to look up all the stuff and then go look at the atlas to see where I was, and I saw that, yeah, it makes sense. Just west of Sedona, there's forest trees mountains from Prescott, so I must have been at the top of the Prescott Mountain, which are just west from here, looking straight down to California, to the coast there. So that's what I was shown, and when I said that I saw destruction and water, earthquakes, everything, so it would have been a tsunami so powerful that it went all the way to Prescott Mountain.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, how did you guys ever meet up? I mean, Crystal, were you having visions like this, or have you always been so open-minded, or did David kind of influence you a little bit, or how did that work out?
Both. Well, yeah, I've always been spiritually minded and had my own very interesting experiences as a child, thinking that I was an object and stuff. So, I've always talked to guides at the time. I just think that they were spirits all around me watching. So I would always internally talk to them. But when I met David, everything sped up more and was meditation, more sitting pose meditation, which was different than what I was doing before. And with just our dialogue and our spiritual compatibility definitely sped up more and more awakening spiritually, and with these visions started more. But yeah, I've always had premonitions through my dreams since I was little.
Okay.
Both with David and the times that were everything coming to a head, these increased more and more to larger scale events.
Now, when I hear the name Ashtar, not only does it bring me back to 1977, that interrupted broadcast, whether or not that's a hoax or not, I definitely find it pretty interesting. And the things that the being said is basically the same thing that it's telling you, that, stuff's going to take place, we can help you, but I have to bring this up. And no disrespect. I want you guys to be open-minded with this. There are a lot of people out there, when I put this on the website, when it launches, it goes to YouTube, there's a lot of people out there that think Ashtar might actually be the work of the devil. I would like to know how you guys respond to this.
Well, I would say that you have to go with not so much what hearsay is, because there's always people who interpret things differently, but more with your experience on what you experienced with that particular person or particular being, which is what we're talking about. So, like Ashtar, I didn't even know who he was, maybe 3 years ago.
Because I know the Bible mentions an Ashtar.
Oh, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah.
But when I became aware of vision, a woman channeling from that past, that she encountered the child, I was then it tied in visions that we were receiving, that David was receiving about prepared for changes and the evaluation
Galactic Federation of Light.
Yeah, a variety of different other beings around there are, have our best interest at heart and want to help us, mankind, and that actually they work for Jesus Christ. They actually carry out his
Yeah, Ashtar is a commander underneath Christ in the philosophy. And many people who have met Ashtar, he tells them that Jesus is the supreme one, and he's just one of many commanders.
And from this Galactic Federation, from what I'm understanding, they actually preach that that there's been Jesus Christ on several different planets.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. But he actually came to David shortly after David had this vision from, this appearance from this angelic child 3 times that tied into the whole rapture. So they were connected. So our personal experience doesn't, the Ashtar doesn't come from the devil because it's tied into our spiritual and angelic experience.
I mean, there's some people who are so afraid of any other spirit, any other being other than Jesus, and even if they saw Jesus, they would say, "Oh, you're deluded. You're not really seeing him." When you have that much fear, I mean, Jesus taught us to love all beings and to love everyone. He didn't say to worship other beings. He just said to love them and treat them, with peace and kindness, and unless someone's out to hurt you. But you have a Christianity today where everything else is the devil. Everything, you fear everything. And I don't think in the words of Jesus he really taught us to be so afraid of everything that's loose and that everything's the devil and everything's going to get you. He really just taught love.
And you do got to go back to the King of Rome back in the day. He actually approved what's in our King James Version Bible today. There's a lot of books that were actually left out. So really, truly, Christianity's incomplete.
Oh, it's very, I've studied it immensely deeply. I had 3 apparitions of Christ that started in 1994 in my life, were blinding visions of Christ appearing to me. He taught me in person. And many of the things he taught me were in the Gnostic or manuscript. But the church has such a stranglehold on the political process of what is the real manuscript and what isn't. There's really no way, even if Jesus were to come back and say, "Hey, those are my true teachings," they wouldn't believe it. They would think, "Well, that must be the devil appearing as Jesus."
Right.
Even though the Bible
I get
doesn't
that.
say that the devil can appear as Jesus, it says the devil can appear as angel of light. And so it's so hard to get anywhere.
And actually, now that you bring that up, I have to say that when I was praying Ashtar, I was so I also had an application. I prayed for an application to understand what it would feel like when a teleported body into the ship. During that experience, I became frightened myself, even though I wasn't in pain. But it was very strange feeling the electrical pulses in my body. And so I called on Archangel Michael just to make sure everything was cool. And he showed me that I was having cortisol. So that's another confirmation.
How do you guys get so open to where you can actually speak to the Archangel Michael or Ashtar? I mean, if I really wanted to do that, would I be able to do that? And if so, how?
Yeah, everyone has that ability, but at different levels of their, spiritual awakening and understanding of, the lifetimes that they've had and what they've progressed through their lifetime. But most people, they have the ability anyway, but they're just don't believe in it enough. So they have to.
Right. And I want to let you guys right now, I'm an upfront kind of guy. I respect you guys 100%. And I'm not saying what you're saying is right or what you're saying is wrong or vice versa. I get a kind of bad feeling about Ashtar. I really do. I don't know. I don't know. It's just like an inner feeling that I have within myself that It just feels wrong. I can't explain it. I'm not saying that my feeling is correct and yours is wrong. Believe me, I believe that diversity, makes for great conversation like we're having right now. I haven't.
Did you ever ask, did you ever pray to Ashtar and ask him come to communicate?
I've never prayed to him. I don't think I ever would pray to him, but I would like to ask him and maybe speak with him if he would do that. I would definitely be interested in hearing what he would have to say.
Well, that's how it happens. Like, I haven't had in-person communication, but when I prayed and, like, prayed to anybody in front of me, then he would answer me in the tree or sometimes on
Now, when you say rapture, could this actually be us humans being taken up on ships?
yeah.
Because, I know if you look back at biblical photographs, you can't deny it. There are UFOs in these photos. You just can't deny it. They're there. It's plain and simple. So there is something to do with UFOs and religion. I don't care what anybody says. I think it's right there in our faces.
Yeah, Ezekiel wheels, even...
Yeah, it's a primitive way of describing a UFO.
What's that?
It's a primitive way of describing a UFO.
Oh, absolutely. The Bible is full. Even the book of Enoch, which should have been included in the Old Testament. Enoch is the first prophet, and he is before Moses, before, all of them. He is really the first one, and it's very clear in the book of Enoch, translated by David Cashel, the Archbishop of Cashel, Lawrence. You can see that God comes down in this crystal spaceship, and there's two angels on the left and right side of him, and Enoch tries to look at God, and he's too bright and too powerful to look at, which is what I experienced when I met Christ, and he falls flat on his face, which is what I did when I met Christ. You can't stand up in his presence, he's too powerful.
Right.
And Enoch, and God tells him to stand and look upon my face and gain eternal life, and he goes into the spaceship, which is made of crystal. We were talking about that earlier, and then he goes flying off into the universe and goes over these 7 mountain ranges, and he sees there actually is a hidden city and kingdom on the planet, and prophecies are given to Enoch. And when you're not familiar with a name, like in the Bible, Western Christianity is a very distorted and diffused version of what the original languages that were used in Jesus' time.
I completely agree.
Yeah, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are Greek translations, they're Greek pieces of work. You have to study some ancient Greek to really understand the symbology in translations, and even the English to really know what you're reading. But when there's a character or a person like Ashtar that you don't know, we can't say the universe is empty and it's Jesus, it's just a couple of angels in the whole universe, and there's nobody else out there.
You know what, and that brings me up another thing too. I know in the Bible it does say that the heavens and the earth, or the heavens and the stars were created for us, for seasons and stuff like that. And it also says that the heavens were inhabited. So that's key right there, inhabited. So that the Bible basically is saying, in my opinion, that there are other beings out there.
Oh, there has to be, and there have to be names of beings that are perfectly good beings and non-harmful. You judge a being by their crime or their misdemeanors, and you say, well, what has this being done? Has he done what all the bankers on the planet did? Did Ashtar imprison everybody, with the dollar interest? No. Did he build buildings and say, worship me, I'm the creator of the universe? No, he didn't say that. He said he works for Jesus. And so you're looking at a character that, when you say something is evil, evil is to take life, the force to destroy or take life or destroy the soul.
Right.
And he's not asking for anybody's soul. And I really believe that Jesus has friends and other masters out there, Buddha and Krishna and all of them are probably great friends. And very, very, if you really educate yourself in these deep religions, it's not a football game where there's only one good guy and everybody else.
Right. And, I think what it is, it's just a very scary topic. You know what I mean? life is short. You'll only live once, supposedly, and you got to get it right the first time. If something is right, you got to get it right. You know what I mean?
You gotta study, deeper. You have to look at source of. We only have words,
Right.
and we don't even know where the word comes from in Greek.
Right.
So someone says, well, the word is what's written in ink, and that's an English word. Well, word meant logos in Greek. So in John 1, in the beginning was the logos, and the logos was with God, and the logos was God. Well, logos in Greek mathematics means perfect ratio, and logos further means the perfect vibration based on ratio, which is music. So he's basically saying God is music, God is vibration. And so, but we in English say, well, we translated logos to word, the word word, and then you get all these people that are obsessed with English printed words.
Right.
That's not what logos means at all.
That's key phrase right there. English printed words.
Yeah, so you get this massive distortion of what the pure, if you want to get to the core of the teaching, like even the Great Pyramid in Peter Lemaiseur's book, we know for a fact, historians can tell us that when Herod pursued the innocent, that Jesus' mother, Mary, and Joseph, his father, took him to Egypt, where the family hid and raised him as a young man. Well, Joseph was an architect, and Jesus probably learned to become a builder architect, which we know he did. And of course he would have studied the Great Pyramids, and we know he did, because he said, show me the cornerstone the builders rejected, and I will make it the chief cornerstone. Well, everyone's been mystified why there's no cornerstone on the top of the pyramid, the capstone. It's missing. And in his day, the limestone casings were mostly there. They were still on the surface of the pyramid. And you can see in summer solstice, the shadow cast off the Great Pyramid runs right through the city of Bethlehem, which, many philosophers believe was the prediction of the birth of Christ. The Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. So the pyramids were built thousands of years before Jesus was even born. And there are, in Lemaiseur's translation of the Great Pyramid Decoded, there are many numbers in the dimensions of, for example, the Grand Gallery, the passage of the Grand Gallery leading up to the King's Chamber, is 153 primitive inches times 12 or cubits long, and Jesus fed 153 loaves of fishes in the presence of his 12 disciples. So 153 times 12. There's so much math that Jesus spoke in numbers, in code, in the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and other manuscripts that prove that he was a student or an orator in studying the geometry of the Great Pyramid, and probably practiced and meditated with it. I built a case for the pyramids being faster than light crystal oscillators because there were two experiments done in the 1990s that proved that physicists could send faster than light signals by sending light wave through a piece of quartz crystal whose crystal lattice geometry, which is on the molecule scale, you have the atomic scale atoms forming, bonding together to form molecules in geometry. And the geometry of silica, which is quartz, is a tetrahedron, which is a three-sided pyramid. And when the light beam that Raymond Chow did this at Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, in the 90s, it was in Discover magazine, he sent a light beam through a little thin slice of silica, and it went 1.7 times the speed of light. Well, at Princeton, Li Jianwang, a Chinese physicist, in the late 90s, 1997, it made news all over the world, sent a laser beam of light through some cesium gas, and the cesium gas is actually a series of four-sided pyramids. That's the geometry of the lattice, molecular structure. It went 300 times the speed of light. 300 times the speed of light.
That's amazing.
Through pyramidal geometry. Well, there's this man who's in the Yucatan, and he's taking pictures with his iPhone in a lightning storm, and you can see in this photograph at earthfiles.com this lightning strike in the background, and this super calm beam of light goes shooting out of the top of the pyramid into space. Well, we know why pyramidal geometries, electromagnetic waves at the base, and they oscillate inside of the crystal material. And when they get to the apex of the pyramid, the top, the waves get so compressed they just seem to oscillate at such a high, ultra-high frequency they go faster than light. Well, if Jesus was meditating inside of the Great Pyramid, and we know Moses was too, that's a fact, then were they using the pyramid, and was it cooperatively working with their own bioelectricity? Because we know the human body is electric,
Right.
and we can change the electricity in the body with crystal, which we do with our pendants. Being inside of a super giant crystal oscillator that is activated either by lightning or using this giant wand that we can see in the Egyptian carving at Dendera, it's very, very clear that the pyramids are laid out in ratios of distant star systems.
Right, yeah, they are.
So, that are hundreds to thousands of light years away. And the Great Pyramid of Egypt, also the scored lines from the descending passage on March 21st, which is coming up, spring solstice, March 21st in 2141 BC, lines up with the heart of the Pleiades star system.
Which is actually officially tomorrow.
And does that tell us something about where they're trying to send their faster than light signal? Were they talking to Pleiades? Were they talking to being in Orion's belt?
That'll be on a Wednesday. Wednesday's biblical.
Yeah, it's a very, very big day this year. In fact, what we did, I'm a Christian. I accept Jesus as the supreme being. I saw him. I know what I was seeing wasn't the devil. I'm not that stupid.
Right, of course.
Between the devil and Jesus, the devil is going to instill conflict and fear and negativity in you, and Jesus is going to instill love and bliss and ecstasy and deep peace in you. So I'm way past the idea of being afraid. But one of the things I've learned from years and years and years of prayer and meditation, planting trees and expanding my consciousness, is that you got to get past fear, because the universe doesn't allow you to even befriend or love any neighbor if you're afraid of everything that moves.
Of course.
In fact, we're so afraid on this planet of everything that moves, we've developed weapons that can destroy extraterrestrial craft, and we've been shooting them down for years. We're so afraid that if a space brother or sister is coming to help us and say, hey, I want to give you guys some technology that you could really accelerate and get beyond these fossil fuels, destroying your oceans and the nuclear power, which is destroying the ocean right now in the Pacific, all the nuclear waste, we would shoot them down and blow them up before they could even deliver the gift, because we're so afraid.
Right.
Jesus did not teach fear. He taught us to get over fear and to love our enemies. To love our enemies, which is harder to do than to love our friends.
You're right. And you know what? The technology that these extraterrestrials possess, if they really wanted to, if they really wanted to, we could be gone right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, they could destroy it, but they don't want to do that. Like, when you have the ability to go interstellar physically, and I believe the pyramids may have, they're such giant crystal oscillator transistors, and we're using little tiny ones in our laptop computers. I think they created enough power and resonance to send a physical person through the Stargate to a distant location thousands of light years away. Because faster than light is very much proven now. It's very new physics, but it's happening. The two experiments I mentioned, Dr. Raymond Chow at Berkeley, and Dr. Li Zhong Wang at Princeton, you can Google it, or you can read the article. It happened. And it's micro-pyramidal geometry that allowed that to happen. And that's my discovery, the connection to the Great Pyramid. But to say that everything is the devil, everything that's flying in spaceships is here to keep us. We need to build up our defenses and military and blow up everything that moves. Who's losing out? We're losing out, because we won't have anybody here. In fact, we wouldn't let Jesus Christ come back, and we would say, well, what if you're in disguise with the devil again?
Yeah, yeah.
He's probably in a physical body again because he knows what happened to him the first time he came in. And if he was even going to appear here, in my opinion, he's far too powerful for the human race. We can't bear the amount of love that I saw, that I experienced 3 times meeting him. There's just too much love coming from that man for the human race to bear. He is too powerful. You can't look at him. You try to look at him, and it's like sending billions of watts to 1 watt light bulb, which is bright as a bulb and burns it out.
Right.
You don't even really deserve being that great. I honestly believe that. We wouldn't last seconds in his full manifest form here. And
David.
He knows that the humans don't have enough love in them for each other, let alone the love of God, which is billions of fold of the love for each other. We hate each other. We pull each other up. We're so afraid of each other. There's no way of being like that.
Now, we don't have much more time left, but I did want to hit on some things here. I want to know more about these pendulums or whatever that you've made. There's stuff that you're selling. I want to know where people can get that. And I also want to ask you, we're in the year 2012. Your wife's had visions, or she's been teleported and she's been shown these visions. What do you think's happening? I mean, all this talk, movies being made, 2012, end of days. Is this the year? I mean, I know 2013, what is it? DA14 2012, the asteroid that actually goes -7, I believe, on a JPG or the whatever that jet propulsion thing is that NASA uses. It actually goes negative. I've never seen anything go negative on that scale. I'm talking about the NASA showing the orbits. You know what I'm talking about.
Really close, next February. I mean, the Great Pyramid, according to Missouri, as a measuring device. I read his book in the 1970s when I was 50 years old, and he made prophecies based on what he was seeing in the pyramid, all of which came true, including the big financial collapse. The pyramid says the physical, materialist civilization will have completely collapsed by 2025. So it doesn't say that on a single date in 2012 it's all going to end. There's a series of events due to cosmic bodies and things happening with our sun that are slowly going to destroy this period in history where we're completely ruled and obsessed by money and numbers, calculators, and we imprison each other by it. And it's going to, when it says the complete destruction of materialist civilization, I don't know if that means by a force of your active nature, or if that means that we'll actually get so tired of putting our own selves in prison because of money, and we will cause physical material civilization to collapse, just like all the riots taking over the world. I don't know, but things are changing so fast. There's so many drastic earth changes.
Oh yeah. We've had earthquakes here in Ohio, just up in Youngstown, not too long ago.
Everything is accelerating. Volcanoes are going off and rattling all over the world right now. If you look on the volcano network,
yeah.
So many volcanoes everywhere. You're hearing the sounds all over the planet, which I think is the creaking and the movement of the Earth's crust due to the magnetic poles. Very, very quickly.
Now, what would happen, though, if your wife is right and that vision does happen and the Earth reverses? What would happen to us on this planet?
I believe that the reason they said it will be safe still is because not only are we far enough in that to avoid the period of destruction, but I think that at some point it's going to get so bad for the entire Earth that the only other result will be for the friendly species to come allow us to board their ships for a period while the Earth needs transformation. And even though the people who will be able to survive down here will be very dire, and the more people that are aware and open enough to be just going on a little trip in a spaceship, like
more and more likely to make friends with distant star beings, and through the exchange of knowledge we can gain, we can possibly get beyond the consciousness we're in now, where it's my mind, I need the most oil, I need fossil fuels, I'm going to blow you up. That whole,
Oh yeah, $4 a gallon.
that whole war over fuel, and so we need zero-point energy, we need anti-gravity to survive. And being like Jesus coming and fixing it all for us is not something, one, that I don't believe we really could handle, because he's too powerful of a being in his full resurrected form. Being is so powerful, what I thought, it would liquefy the entire planet solar system if he were to materialize here, and everything would turn into light temporarily while he was here.
That's why he would delegate more lower beings that are still high energy.
Exactly. He would delegate. He's too powerful. Not even an angel can do space without burning to a place. We're lucky that he walks here. The fact that we destroy his body is inconsequential to who he is, but it is consequential to who we are.
Right, you're right.
Employers, we're not. It's not even likely that if these big earth changes happen, very few of us will survive.
I don't believe that. I think that's the reason why we're having competition as a humanity, because the more people who are aware and start to entertain their preparations, then the more lives we save.
If they listen, though,
but one of the things that we became aware of during the whole process is that when they do teleport your body up to the ship, you can't have fear. Fear will destroy your body and you could die.
And what I think it is, David, I'm sorry, Krista, I don't mean to interrupt. I just think it's fear. I think that it's the way people are raised, a Christian nation, and everybody's taught this, that this is the way in stone. Nobody's really got an open mind, and I think that is why a lot of people don't listen.
Yes, well, those, unfortunately, people who can't get out of fear will not have a chance, but when people become aware to want to expand beyond our experience here and want to create life on Earth, then maybe they'll be able to drop their fear, because when they get into the higher energy, then their body can shift and then come back to the Earth in better condition. But if they're in fear, then that's a low vibration, which won't allow their body to teleport into the dimension.
Yeah, I think the devil is fear itself. It instills fear. It makes you fear your enemy and your neighbor so much that you could never possibly love them the way Jesus wanted them to love you. Fear is the enemy. And the only reason you should fear someone is if they plan on taking life, your life, or the life of somebody else.
Agreed. I agree on that.
Because that's what evil is. Evil backwards is live backwards. So it's life taking force, and there's no reason to fear anyone who doesn't plan to imprison you, like our own central bankers do.
Oh, God, yes.
And so, if anyone's the devil, it's them.
Yeah, you're right.
But anyway, yeah, it's really, I agree with what you said. I mean, even when you said you're Ashtar, I understand. There's no reason you should trust him. You've never met him. He hasn't appeared in the world and said who he is.
And not only that, it's the brainwashing effect. It's the YouTube effect. It's the things you see on TV,
That's why you really have to go by energy and what you can feel as an energy zone. Or if you believe in a particular, if you pray to God or to Archangel Michael, ask them to be protection while you're experiencing that particular being's energy, and then you'll still be guilty if it's your own fear that's clouding your judgment, or if it's truly, that person's energy, low energy. It's really tricky because people's fear can get in the way of truth, but when you work hard on your fear and you do all you can to remove your own internal fear, then you can truly judge
See, I'll go out on a limb here. I'm diagnosed with depression. I'm actually being treated for it. So, my energy would be low, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, attendance was definitely.
Yeah, we can measure if you're clinically depressed. While you're depressed, you take a voltmeter and put it on the 200 millivolt setting and put a little bit of water on your fingers and hold the red and the black probe and look at the numbers and email me and tell me what you see. And you can get a voltmeter for $30 on Amazon. And then...
Now, can you get it from your website? Do you have a website? Or...
Our website is lightstreamtechnologies.com. That's lightstreamtechnologies.com. Dependence in the one. And you'll see pictures of the aura camera test and the voltmeter test.
LIGHT.
Okay, yeah, I've got it already linked to the site. I just wanted you guys to say it on the air as well.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, the use of stone and the, when you look in, even in the Old Testament and the New Testament, you'll see the use of the different types of crystals in heaven, the different types of stones in heaven. It's really quite amazing that the way the Bible tells us the New Jerusalem, the new city, when it comes down, it describes all of the different types of crystals and the structures of the buildings there. It's really quite amazing.
Right.
So the connection to the crystal and God, like in the Book of Enoch, the crystal spaceship and the crystal buildings and the crystal cities, and looking at the pyramids and giant crystal oscillators. I think they're not working anymore. The pyramids have been turned off. They don't have their crystal oscillator power source, the transmitter devices. The Ark of the Covenant was probably one of the components that used to belong in the King's Chamber to activate the pyramids electronically. But what I've done by decoding all the frequencies of the Great Pyramid and being able to produce those frequencies, I can actually create a hologram of the vibration of the Great Pyramid on a much smaller scale, but yet that hologram can vibrate into your house, into your body, and experience what it does.
Well, I'll tell you what, David, the way I want to leave it is, first of all, if it would be possible, send me a photo of your wife, because I would like to put her on the website, too, since she did speak. And
she's on my Facebook. If you go to my Facebook and my photos, you'll see her there.
Okay, what's your Facebook?
David Serita.
Okay, so facebook.com/David Serita.
No, just Google me on Facebook.
That's an old photo.
Oh, I know, but we don't have any other photos. It's a great photo. That's one of my favorite photos.
Uh-oh, here we go. Been there, done that, man. I'll tell you what, let's leave it like this. I'm going to give Crystal a closing statement. What would you like to say to anybody out there listening? And then when you're done, David, I'm going to give you the final word, and then we're going to end the show.
Yeah, I would just say that for anybody who has an intuition, the work on changes, to work really hard on their fear and or just omit the fear, so just stay in, high vibration, stay away from conflict. Hopefully, you'll be guided to the right places, but definitely don't live on the coast if you can. If you have to stay there, then just be aware of the light and walk into the light whenever you can.
And that was July 21st, or what was that?
July
11th? 11th, okay. Of this year, 2012. Okay, David, let's close it out, my friend.
Well, I'd like to say that one of the reasons maybe we receive visions of these things is that we know through our film The Voice in Quantum Communication and voiceentertainment.net that science has proven that collective consciousness, if you can get millions of minds to think of changing these events before they happen, you can. We have that power, and maybe that's why we now have science and spirituality merging to prove to us that we can amplify consciousness. And in Exodus 28, verse 15, we can see the brother of Moses, Aaron, makes a breastplate of gems before approaching God in the temple. And the question is, did the gems amplify his body voltage the same way our stones do, so that he he could raise his vibration so it would be easier for him to hear and communicate between himself and God. There's no doubt that amplifying consciousness and thought and intention is very powerful and can be magnified like a beam, like a noosphere, which was prophesied by the Jesuit priest Ashtar. That when the human conscious really evolved, we realized the collective mind of humanity has so much power, so much voltage and amperage. If we see a disaster coming, we can at least mitigate or minimize its harmful effects. And that's why I believe we see visions appear, because nature is saying this event is likely to happen. The event Crystal saw in July is likely to happen, but it doesn't mean you can't change it.
Right. Right. Very true. And I don't know how, David, but one of these days, man, somehow we're gonna have to meet up and we're gonna have to sit down, have a glass of tea together or something.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know where it'll be or how it'll be or when it'll be, but I don't know. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I believe the angelic spaceships don't use machinery to generate power. The crystal spaceship that appeared to Enoch was literally powered by high spiritual vibrations. Those are the angelic ships. They're much more advanced than the machinery craft that are developed by, very, very less evolved beings than that. But even if we could develop a physical spaceship and teleport ourselves around and not use fossil fuels, that would be a great thing.
I don't think anybody's going to argue. Okay, guys, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate you coming on. Crystal, it was great speaking to you for the first time as well. And I wish you guys well, and David will have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right, so you guys take care and God bless. Good night.